welcome to another episode of RobLive. This is episode 13. It's okay not to be okay. As always, we will start with a quote, and this one comes from Tracy Eldridge, a podcaster. And the quote is, "It's okay not to be okay. It's just not okay to stay that way." We need to seek the help when we need it. So I want to start off with a personal story that has led to this episode. And the story goes that I was, hold on, let me make sure my microphone's. I was teaching class last week. As many of you know, I'm a high school teacher at Sierra Pacific High School, creative writing, and I work with the ELD population as well. And I was talking in front of my class regarding, some of the things I had witnessed as a child that have shaped me today. And as I was recalling some of these incidents, I had a flashback, mental flashback in my mind, and I envisioned a scenario that happened way too often as a youngster that I didn't really grasp until now. And that was that I had witnessed child abuse on multiple occasions with a close relative. Now, just to clarify, the abuse was never directed at me. But when I was in the company of these relatives, they would abuse some of the children who lived in their home. And by physical abuse, I mean, the way they disciplined, the way that they would, strike the children, and some of the methods they used to discipline the kids by today's standards would fall under the category of child abuse. And as I was having these flashbacks, I started to realize, that I had witnessed some pretty traumatic incidents and that they were still playing a role in my life. And then as I recalled emotions I had felt throughout my life, it started to make sense, some of the anxiety that I had gone through over the years. And so I can recall struggling with anxiety from a very early age. I would say it probably started in preschool, having to go away and be away from my mother and stay at school for a period of time. And I remember kindergarten as well, kind of running back to the car and not wanting to be away from her. And at first, I thought, it's a pretty normal thing because a lot of kids have that same experience where, they don't want to leave mom the first time or it's hard to leave. But I realized over time that my anxiety levels, although they alleviated a little bit, were always lingering and would come and go in degree of strength depending on the day. But I can honestly say almost every day of my life that I attended school started with a nervous, anxious feeling in the morning. Even if it was a field trip day, even if it was a fun day, there was always this level of anxiety that started the day off. And so growing up, I kind of thought, okay, well, this is social anxiety. This is just me feeling the uncomfortableness that comes from constantly being thrown into new environments or unexpected environments, or, just the fear of the unknown. And then as I progressed and began playing sports, it kind of manifested itself into a performance anxiety where I'd get really nervous before games and couldn't perform at my full potential that I was capable of because I could never get comfortable, whether we were playing tackle football, whether it was wrestling, soccer, baseball, all of the sports I ever played. I can never recall any sport where I wasn't excessively nervous before the game. Now, I'm not just talking about, regular nerves that most people have, but these are nerves that would linger throughout the game, even after a couple of quarters of football or, whatever it may be, the sport. And I remember a lot of times that after the game, I would be crying. Win or lose, I'd be crying because it was just this huge sigh of relief that now, that sport or whatever it was over. And game days were specifically painful for me because, from the moment I woke up until the actual game, I was just thinking about the game and the anxiousness of it and the nerves. And it was just, just bouts of anxiety. and it just became a normal part of how I lived my life for a long time. And I just thought, you know what, I'm just not made for this. And I was surprised that I actually continued to play sports even throughout college as a soccer player. But even then, there was always this sense of anxiousness. And so as I reflect back now on where that stems from, I think a lot of it has to do with what I witnessed as a child. And even though the abuse was not directed at me, there was this sense of guilt at having witnessed it and not doing anything about it. And, consciously you think, hey, you were a child, you processed it as you would any child, intimidated, scared. But, you can't help but feeling guilty. Like, none of this happened to me. I had to witness it. Why did it have to happen to people that I really care about? And, what can I do about it now? And so as I start to realize how these events took a toll on my mental health, and how I feel like it's probably a large source of the anxiety that I feel on a regular basis, throughout my childhood, even my sports career, etc., I feel it's now time to address it. And so when we go back to our quote, it's okay not to be okay. It's just not okay to stay that way. What I want to address about that is that it's important that we don't put a negative stigma on struggling with mental health. A lot of people will categorize that as being mentally weak, or not knowing how to manage emotions to the point that you can function on a regular basis. We want to take that stigma away, but at the same time, we also want to address the issue and not just say, oh, well, I guess, anxiety will be a part of my life for the rest of my life and I just have to deal with it, as opposed to going out and trying to get some help and doing something about it. And that's where I really want to emphasize today's episode, is that I am currently in the process of actually doing something about it for the first time in my life. And what that will be is that I've set up some therapy sessions. I'm fortunate to be a school teacher, and so we have a list of approved providers that will help me in that area. And so I will start talking about these traumas and hopefully address them to the point where I no longer have to have a consistent level of anxiety. As I've gotten older, obviously, and as my confidence level has gone up, I don't feel like I have these anxious moments quite as often. But I recently did have one, and funny enough, comes back to sports. As many of you know, I was playing baseball with a 50 and over team. And I would have to say, during the playoffs, when we finally made it to the playoffs, in our second game of the playoffs, I just really struggled and made some uncharacteristic errors. And it was, again, that anxiety, those nerves, and that fear of making mistakes that was way blown out of proportion. And I remember my team manager, Tim, talking to me, Coach Tim, and he's like, look, you really, this is all mental right now. You've made these types of plays before, and right now the struggle's mental. And so, to this day, this anxiety still comes and goes into my life, and it's time to address it. And so I really just want to encourage you out there to recognize if there's anything that's lingering and continuing to affect you in your lives today, that you go out and seek the help that you need. There's no shame in seeking help. There's a lot of empowerment that can come from getting the help you need, instead of having to feel like you're not in control or you're in a victim mindset because you're being plagued with whatever lingering mental health issues may be in your life. So today's challenge, RobLive challenge or call to action, is to list any ongoing health issues that have plagued you for more than 6 months. Write them down. Anxiety, depression, whatever you may be going through, right? And then step 2, identify a source of assistance that's within your budget and proximity. That might be a trusted friend. That might be free counseling through your county, which is offered through many counties. It might be a mental health hotline like 988 or mentalhealthhotline.org. You can also call them at 866-903-3787, or the route that I'm taking, because I'm blessed to have a job that allows this. And if your job does allow this, a therapist offered through your employer. You'll be surprised some of the things that your employer can offer. If you're not sure, go to your human resources department, and they will gladly share any mental health assistance that you can receive through that. Anyway, begins the mental health journey. I will keep you guys updated on my therapy sessions and what happens here. I want to be very transparent about it, because I want to encourage people out there to also seek the assistance that you might need. Remember, it's okay not to be okay. It's just not okay to stay that way. With love, peace, chicken grease, this is RobLive, and we're out.